1649, the Maryland General Assembly passed an act concerning religion. This act established the rules around religion in the Maryland colony, most notably by granting toleration to all Christian denominations. This is why it is now referred to as the Maryland Toleration Act. Everyone has gotten this act's purpose wrong, however, and this is even evident in the very name it is referred to as. In this documentary, I will explain the common errors in interpreting the meaning of this act, propose my own interpretation, and explain how this interpretation relates to the rights and responsibilities of Maryland Catholics. The first erroneous approach is the idea that the act was made primarily to protect the religious liberties of Catholics. The act was unique in that it tolerated all Christian denominations. Quote, no person professing to believe in Jesus Christ shall in any way be troubled, molested, or disaccounted for or in respect to his religion. It is tempting, therefore, to attribute the act to having the same, or at least a similar, purpose to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Both documents forbid interference with free religious practice, which would seem to indicate a shared purpose and similar worldview behind them. Additionally, it is tempting to think that the creators of the act, the Maryland General Assembly and Cecil Calvert, had a similar view on religion's place in society to the First Amendment. Yet, as I will demonstrate, this viewpoint is erroneous. This is where another erroneous approach that minimizes the act's impact on society and focuses on the act's discrimination of non-Christians comes into play. Far from promoting religious tolerance, the main purpose of the act seems to have been to establish what punishment other religions should receive. The act states that all non-Christians should be, quote, punished with death and confiscation or forfeiture of all his or her lands and goods to the Lord Proprietary and his heirs. Additionally, the act even regulates free speech concerning religion. Quote, that whateversoever person or persons shall from henceforth use or utter any reproachful words or speeches concerning Mary or the apostles shall forfeit to said Lord Proprietary and his heirs £5. This seems, therefore, to be in continuity with earlier viewpoints on relations between the state and religion, since it places the state as having the authority to kill those with religious viewpoints that it deems wrong. Thus, the questions arise, how can these seemingly contradictory ideas about the Maryland Toleration Act be reconciled? What was the act's purpose? Historian Gerald W. Johnson reconciled the seeming contradiction by stating that the first part of the act was unimportant, merely a disguise to hide the act's true purpose. Yet, as I will demonstrate, these sections can be viewed as a compromise and as the responsibility part of rights and responsibilities. Really, the fundamental error with both approaches that were mentioned is that they looked at the Maryland Toleration Act from a modern perspective, and instead of by understanding the act's purpose, the full context surrounding its creation, the mindset and ideas of the time period, and the type of society it wanted. The act cannot be viewed entirely from a perspective of separation of church and state, because the act leaves room for the violation of this principle. Rather, the act creates a system for managing the rights and responsibilities of Catholics that involve mutual toleration of denominations, shared non-negotiable core beliefs, and putting loyalty to the country and society above personal religious values. The act created a vision of religion's place in society that was different from other colonies at the time, even though it didn't live up to the later First Amendment. The act's purpose was to solve earlier questions surrounding Catholics' place in English society and put that into writing by establishing a system in which Catholics and other denominations could exist in the same English colony. And it gave the Catholic elite of the colony the duty to uphold religious peace as a prerequisite for the creation of a society in which Catholics could hold power. An act concerning religion opens with the following statement: forasmuch as in a well-governed and Christian commonwealth, matters concerning religion and the honor of God ought to be taken. This statement gives us the purpose of the act, which is to regulate religious matters. This further dismisses connections to the First Amendment, which justifies toleration of religions by stating that no government can concern itself with religious matters. This opening, however, places religious regulation front and center, and the toleration it grants can actually be seen as an extension of the government's power, not a limitation of it. After all, the religious liberty it grants focuses more on the punishment that the government could give to those who created hostility between denominations. Quote, whatsoever person who declare or denominate any person within this province to belonging heretic, idolater, Puritan, independent, Presbyterian, Popish priest, Jesuit, Jesuited priest, Lutheran, Calvinist, or any other name or term in a reproachful manner, shall, relating to the matter relating to the matter of religion shall for every such offence forfeit and lose the sum of 10 shillings. Here, name calling. Thus, it seems that the Act's primary purpose was to demonstrate Catholics' commitment to their responsibility of protecting Protestants and avoiding conflict, rather than the primary purpose being to protect the Catholics. Second half to exist. If the Act wanted to establish a coherent societal model, different from the traditional church-state model, it needed to provide some pretext for unity and some authority from which it derives its power. Here, it finds the common Christian religion a unifying force, which is why non-Christians could not be tolerated. Comparison with other documents from the time period shows what the Maryland Toleration Act was trying to do. It laid out a completely different societal model for how religions ought to interact with each other. The Laws and Liberties of Massachusetts was written just a year before, in 1648. It also dealt with the topic of how government should relate to religion, but its approach towards other denominations was markedly different. It threatens all those who oppose infant baptism with exile and prohibits men brought up and devoted to the religion and court of Rome, that is, Roman Catholics. Dale's laws, written in 1611 for the Virginia colony, require all men and women to attend mandated church service on Sunday, while the Act concerning religion only mandates that no work be done on Sunday. Clearly, there is a difference between Maryland's Toleration Act and other early colonial laws concerning the question of religion. This brings the question of what caused the difference between Maryland's Toleration Act and the other ones. Well, Maryland's Toleration Act emerged in a different context from the other laws in separate colonies, which enabled it to be markedly different from those of earlier colonies. Remember how I said that Maryland was founded as a Catholic colony? Well, during the English Reformation, an argument for hostility towards Catholics was that Catholicism was inherently disobedient to the English monarchy. Queen Elizabeth articulated this idea when she banished all members of the Jesuit order in 1585. As justification for this, she states in the prologue that Jesuits have of late years come, not only to withdraw subjects from due obedience to Her Majesty, but also to stir up and move sedition, rebellion, and open hostility. This is why Maryland could not enforce a state-mandated denomination. It was unable to do so. Any attempt to convert others to Catholicism would be met with immediate scrutiny. The only way to simultaneously allow Catholics to exist freely in the colony and assuage the Protestants of their fears of Catholic tyranny would be to bar Catholics from attempting to influence Protestants, both overtly and covertly. Far from being made primarily to protect Catholics, it seems that the Act's main purpose might have been to assure that no religion, including Catholicism, got the upper hand in the colony. Catholics would not be capable of sedition if they could not be hostile towards Protestants. Conflicts around religion were rife during the establishment of the earliest colonies, which is what made Lord Baltimore's model, in which religious harmony existed, appealing to Charles II, who was king at the time Maryland was founded. These conflicts were what the Maryland Toleration Act also sought to prevent, and they factored into its creation. To prove this point, the conflict around Edwin Sands, a leader in the preceding Jamestown colony, should be discussed. Sands was slandered as being a Puritan radical who supported sedition. There was not any man in the world that carried a more malicious heart to the government of a monarchy than Sir Edward Sands did. Impeded the development of the English colony, and the government at home knew it. Lord Baltimore's deal was to establish a new colony based around common Christian identity, loyalty to the crown, and, most importantly, no public debate over religion, because the other colonies were clearly hindered by this. In summary, as a reward for taking on the responsibility of managing a colony without religious conflict experienced by the other colonies, Catholics were rewarded with the equal privileges and rights in the new colony. Thus, it seems that the Act's primary purpose was to demonstrate Catholics' commitment to their responsibility of protecting Protestants and avoiding conflict, rather than the primary purpose being to protect the Catholics. Instead of putting their denominational differences first over collaboration with other denominations, all Christians would be required to put their allegiance to the government and the colony society over their denominational affiliation by complying with the law that prevented them from emphasizing denominational differences that created societal tension. However, the Act compromised with the religious zeal of the inhabitants by ensuring that a united Christian identity would remain intact throughout the colony. The Act, in summary, created the only societal model that can reconcile the fears of religious tyranny, religious oppression, and religious chaos that were prevalent at the time.